NBC News has learned that indicted Trump Organization executive Alan Weisselberg has been quietly removed from top positions at more than 24 Trump subsidiaries. But Weisselberg, who was indicted on tax fraud charges this month and has pleaded not guilty, does still remain CFO of the Trump Organization. NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson joins us now from Washington to break this all down for us. So, Hallie, tell us, what does this mean? Where does Weisselberg stand right now within the Trump org?
So let's start with kind of the nuts and bolts of that, Joe, just to answer your questions here. And this is interesting, right, because you have Weisselberg now. NBC News has confirmed, based on public records and filings in the state of Florida, being removed as an officer from like more than 24 Trump Organization subsidiaries. So that has happened. It's not like they announced it in a press release, right? It happened a little bit quietly, just these filings that were put in place. Why? That's the big question. I can tell you, based on my conversations with a source familiar with this move, that the reason that this happened was for what was described as prudent corporate governance, right? And the idea being that by doing this, by taking Weisselberg's name off of some of these records, it essentially could help the Trump Organization avoid any potential pitfalls in the state of Florida. I will note that the emphasis was that Weisselberg's role at this point appears to remain unchanged inside the Trump Organization. But, Joe, let me tell you, this move is being seen by some observers as a potential signal of maybe change, right? Maybe Weisselberg doesn't stay as CFO for much longer. Let me just caveat here. I'm a reporter, as you know, sticking to the facts. That is, speculation and conjecture on the part of some people who are observing what is happening here. Because right now, remember, the Trump Organization has thrown its weight fully behind its CFO. Even after the indictments came down, Joe, you'll remember that they released this statement, praising Weisselberg as this loving grandfather, talking about his nearly 5 decades with the Trump Organization. It seems unlikely to me, based on conversations that I have had with people close to the situation, that the Trump org would just turn around right now and, cut Weisselberg out completely because of this indictment. And in fact, if they were to do that, Joe, that would actually undercut their entire PR push here, as they have tried to portray these charges as simply politically motivated, insisting that Weisselberg did nothing wrong and essentially has nothing to hide, partly why he has pleaded not guilty, as you've noted.
And we know they're not big on backing down on anything. So the big question, of course, a lot of folks have is looking forward. Have we learned anything, any possible clues about whether there could be other potential charges against the Trump Organization or whether there would be any charges at all against the former president himself?
Let me take that in 2 buckets. First, any charges coming against others in the Trump Organization. Prosecutors have been very clear, and they have said explicitly that this is an ongoing investigation, basically dangling out this hint that we're still actively working on it. That said, they have not issued any other indictments. Obviously, we would have heard about it. And there has been nothing public on that front, which indicates that they are continuing to work, at least behind the scenes. I will say there's another sort of key moment that is going to be happening in the Weisselberg case coming up in September. So that's one thing that we're looking ahead to. As for the potential charges against former President Trump, listen, he was not charged. He was not part of the most recent, the round of indictments that we've seen, those first criminal charges in this long-time ongoing New York District Attorney investigation. If that were to happen, and that is a huge if still at this point, Joe, we're not going to know from what I understand from legal experts here, months, if not years, right? It's not like we're turning around tomorrow and may hear word of that, if in fact that were to happen. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment.
All right. We know you'll stay on top of it. Hallie Jackson in Washington for us. Thank you so much, my friend.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.